Hi, my name is Jason Aponte. I'm an artist here in Miami, Florida, and I'm here as an invitation from the Frank Gallery to talk about my artistic practice and about the work that's in the show right now. I'll start by telling you a little bit about my history, where I'm from. I was born here in Homestead, in Homestead Air Force Base. I come from a large military family, and also did all of my early schooling in Homestead, and my life was all Homestead. Most of my experiences were in farm fields and or the base. That was my early childhood, and I found myself having a difficult time finding inspiration in Homestead. I would say that, you know, everything came from within and internally, and I would draw and paint ideas that were just kind of popping up into my head from very early on. And you know, I didn't have really a great mentor that allowed me to sort of grow maybe faster. It became a part of me to actually work in my room in a sketchbook. My first oil set was when I was 13 years old. I remember painting wolves on my door, and my parents weren't exactly enthused about that, but I did little things here and there to explore my artistic creativity, and one of the early things that I would do was actually I would copy comic books. That's sort of where I originally learned to draw, was copying those pages of comic books. Outside of that, I did have my cousin who was an artist also, and he and I would sit and draw together. That continued. I just didn't know at that age that there was a real place for the way that I thought. Having a career that actually would foster that type of existence. An artist was sort of this abstract concept to me. Of course, I knew about the greats, because you can't help but come across Da Vinci or Van Gogh or whatever, and I just sort of thought that they were up there, and I couldn't I couldn't hold the light to that, and it was very difficult to understand that you could really develop these things and learn to get there. And so I went to Miami-Dade Community College, and I went there because I wasn't sure which career path I was going to take. I did an art education associate's degree, but while I was there, that's when I really saw the potential of what I could do. I had some great teachers there that some of them were difficult to work with, but at the same time, they did teach me a lot and teach me real techniques and real things that pushed my work forward. But also, it allowed me to develop a portfolio that I can use to apply with, and I ended up applying to Ringling School of Art and Design, where I got my degree in illustration. While I was there, I still kind of had the idea, not necessarily comic books, but I liked the idea of working in film and media, or gaming. So I would develop my portfolio, towards that type of genre, and in illustration. But then 9/11 occurred, and that sort of took away a lot of options, because a lot of the companies just had a hiring freeze, which it made me adapt. I already had the idea that I didn't exactly want to work under an art director, and wanted to really just show what was inside of me, and do work that that inspired me, which was again at that point a difficult stance for, I didn't know how to go from point A to point B in terms of showing my work, where to go. I wasn't in a fine arts program. I was in, I was learning how to draw and paint, and I was learning directly. I mean, I don't know, countless figure drawing courses and anatomy courses. I mean, I took gross anatomy at University of South Florida. It was a nice, interesting special program there. And so once I was done with school, I kind of, it was a big world out there. I had no idea how to step into it. So I latched onto some friends of mine that they lived in Boston. They were my roommates, and they had me come out, and I actually really enjoyed the city and wanted to be a part of that art world. Miami, maybe I was just too close to it and I couldn't see it there, and so I felt like I had to leave, and I'm glad I did, because while I was in Boston, I was exposed to some fantastic museums. The Fogg Art Museum at Harvard, the Museum of Fine Arts, Mass MoCA, all these places that I could really see the work in person and really just take it all in. And I found myself just completely inspired by that. And my work took a direction of kind of observing contemporary life in a way that I didn't see before, and I would say that on some levels I directly ripped off Edward Hopper, or Andrew Wyeth, even maybe a little bit, and just looked at those artists and saw my world with that lens, the lens of those artists. And this lecture is based off of capturing the facets of contemporary life, and that's how it started. I started to see the sort of inner world that people had, even amongst others, and really showing work that really kind of told this inner story, even though it was this outside world. And I found that fascinating. But at the same time, I felt that I was kind of lacking in something that I wanted to say. I wasn't being as direct with my concepts. But moving forward, I ended up moving back to Miami, more for family. And once I was back, I realized that Miami's art scene was growing, and it grew a lot. So I ended up getting a studio here and started developing some images that were popping into my head. And these images were taking, normal day-to-day scenes again, but then overlaying with other images of fantasy and or films even, and piecing those together told a different story. And I think, contemporary life these days is there's a buffer, and that buffer or filter tends to be our computers, our phones, and I think of the reflection of phones. I think of the reflection of the screen of the computer, and I think of the it's glass, and you're seeing the world through this glass. And so a lot of the reflection pieces that you see in the show kind of sit within those lines of having that extra filter. And maybe part of it is like that it's a confusing world, and so a lot of the images just blend in together, and you sort of lose the meaning. And I find that very interesting, but it also, once you actually sit and it kind of forces you to slow down when you're looking at this type of work. You slow down to observe it because you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to understand what you're seeing, but there's a surrealistic aspect to that. You see one image, but then all of a sudden it transitions and turns into something else. And I think that our ideas and concepts, even in our head, the way we maybe look at something, it does that. You're thinking about, oh, what I'm gonna have for dinner, but then you're thinking, oh, I need to write a paper, or I need to these are all these things that pop into your head at the same time. And I find this overlay of images is an externalization of that. And so I just started to create a lot of work that was doing this. And a little bit more recently, I was taking images of people that were going through a migration, and I would say a forced migration via political or even economical and even weather-related migrations. So that was a little bit more inspired by my own experiences. I went to, while I was living in Homestead, we went through Hurricane Andrew. And while, after that the hurricane hit, then we ended up being displaced as well, while our home was being repaired. Also, I had to change high schools. So I understood that, this type of reality of that people have to go through something like this. I thought it was kind of interesting to overlay images of prosperity and images of sort of, bland or, plain existence, things that we do every day. We sit at a restaurant, we might go to a party, things like that occur after, when things are good. When things are good, things are okay, we do these things. And it's kind of almost no matter where we are, but and I see it more as the idea of hope. We can go through something so devastating, but then return back to normalcy. And I find that idea very powerful. And I think everyone sort of needs that reminder. My future projects have gone in the direction of dreamscapes. I am producing work now that is dealing with a lot of my dreams, and especially during this time when things are so different than before, to put it more political. But yeah, it's dreams are just one of those things that I think it's an untapped world. I think we living our lives, 1/3 of our life is spent asleep, and there's a power to our dreams. There's a power within that maybe helps us deal or escape from these realities. Even if you have a nightmare, that it's there to maybe help you train to get through it. And I find that a fascinating aspect of our life that we don't really talk about as much. And I think we either ignore or avoid or don't recall, or we haven't learned to really push that world. And so I want to externalize my dreams and make them actually tangible. These are things that people cannot actually see unless you actually put it out there in writing, or try to recreate it in film. And here I'm doing it with my artwork. So I'm looking forward to showing that work in the future. In conclusion, I'd like to thank the Frank Gallery and Tara Nicole for inviting me into Bits and Pieces. also all of you for joining in and listening to the lecture. If you have any questions, just contact me. You can do it through Instagram at japonteart or my website www.jasonaponte.com. And thanks again.